Nan Huai Chin. The activation of this person's energy channels is more accurate than the previous individuals, somewhat resembling the phenomenon of the Du-Ren meridians being opened, as described in Taoism. Case Study 6. Female Artist. Translation: This woman is now nearly 60 years old and has been practicing super meditation for almost 5 years. After meditating, her arms started to vibrate and her palms became hot. Then, for several days she couldn't sleep, and her body was filled with energy. There were several times when she felt her consciousness separate from her body. She continually heard a strong voice in her mind. Later, her big toe cramped, her thigh shook, and overnight, her toenail turned black, as if it had been struck with a hammer, eventually falling off. The muscle tissue in her thigh vibrated intensely, and this vibration spread throughout her body, reaching her head, where her forehead felt as if a band was tied around it. Then her head involuntarily started to shake, her body swayed, and her tongue automatically pressed against the roof of her mouth. These phenomena are closely related to yoga practices, with the tongue pressing against the roof of the mouth being one of the most secret methods in yoga. Many accomplished yogis use this technique. This woman did not force her tongue upwards. Instead, it naturally pressed against the roof of her mouth. At the same time, she also naturally heard the Om sound in her mind, which is one of the holiest sounds in Hinduism. The vibration continued from her neck to her head and face, with both of her nostrils being affected. She felt as though her nose had become longer and her eyeballs could rotate independently. Master Huai. This phenomenon is called Elephant King vision, meaning that both eyes are looking outward simultaneously. Translation: At the same time, she felt that her pupils were like two holes in her head, meeting at the center of her brain. Master Huai. Correct. Translation: The back of her head, skull, and forehead all felt great pressure, especially when reading. This pressure even made her eyes uncomfortable, and she felt a pulsing sensation at the top of her head. Then she felt a strong light and a sense of joy, and she laughed. The vibrations continued through her mouth and chin. Afterward, she began to dream of heavenly music. Later, this sensation spread to her throat, chest, and abdomen. Finally, the path of vibration slowly formed a closed, oval-like circle, with energy moving upward along her spine and then flowing down the front of her body. She later felt that certain energy centers in her body were activated. These centers were located in the lower abdomen, navel, solar plexus, heart, head, and throat. Throughout the formation of the circle, she felt energy entering her body from the navel. Once the circle was formed, no more energy entered her body. Throughout this process, she experienced strong sexual desire and naturally engaged in yoga breathing techniques, pranayama. This phenomenon of flame activation continued for several months. Later, she only occasionally experienced flame phenomena, usually during meditation or when she was lying down in a relaxed state. She had previously read some books about flame activation and knew that her experiences were a result of this phenomenon. At first, she was relaxed and allowed things to develop naturally. However, later, this experience began to affect her daily life. Energy flow occurred both day and night, affecting her sleep and work. She felt as though she had separated from life and had become an observer of her daily activities. Eventually, her bodily sensations returned to normal, though there was still a sense of pressure in her head. She felt that her connection with her higher self was becoming stronger, as if she had found an essence or center that was not influenced by the ups and downs of daily life. Master Huai, this person's energy channel activation is more accurate than the previous individuals, resembling the phenomenon of the Du-Ren meridian channels being opened, as described in Taoist practices. She still feels pressure in her head, And there is still a sense of self-identity, meaning her crown chakra and Brahman center have not fully opened. During this process, she didn't sleep, which is actually a good phenomenon. Spiritual practice requires cutting off the 5 hindrances: greed, anger, fame, food, and sleep, also called the 5 hindrances: desire, anger, sleepiness, restlessness, and doubt. The 5 hindrances are obstacles to spiritual progress. Many people fear the lack of sleep and mistakenly believe they have insomnia, which is a misunderstanding that can negatively affect their mental state. The most important thing is that she lacks prajna, wisdom, and doesn't understand the real theories and practices of both the small and large vehicle Buddhist paths. Bao Zhuo Li, why did her tongue naturally press against the roof of her mouth? Master Huai, it happens naturally when the Ren meridian is activated. This is a natural physiological response. However, she is still in the preliminary stages. The reason she can do this is due to her past life practices. Initially, we consciously place the tongue against the roof of the mouth, and later it will naturally press against the roof of the mouth. When the Du and Ren meridians are truly connected, the tongue will be pulled down. Bao Zhuo Li, why did she feel as though she had separated from her body? Master Huai, this is also a natural phenomenon resulting from past life cultivation. It's close to the first jhana, meditative state, of joy and bliss of liberation from birth. But she didn't realize it, and thus the experience was wasted. Later, she became afraid it would affect her work, so she took a step back. If she truly committed to serious practice, she could recover quickly. This is called work is never in vain, meaning the merits of past practices are not lost. However, in today's society, very few people are truly willing to study transcendent practices and step out of the worldly cycle.